You are now listening to the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast.
What's going down is DJ Payne 1, and this is the MEC podcast, episode 1, with me, Kato on the track, and Dame Ritter. There's a lot of bad information out there and a lot of people involved in giving that bad information who aren't currently involved in the music business in any capacity. And all three of us have the experience, but we're still in the trenches of the music business in different capacities. We're doing it every day. And because the music business is changing every day, we're changing with it. We just want to have some conversations, spread some information, and do so in a format that doesn't restrict what we can say. That's why I say this is no holds barred music entrepreneurship. You know, Dame is going to say some wild stuff, and so is Kato. I mean, I'm the calm one here, and I've turned over a new leaf in 2019.
Nah. Well, I think this platform is just going to give us more of an informal platform for us to kind of vent and say things the way we want to say them, but at the same time be super educational, hopefully entertaining. So I think this will be unique in that sense, because this will definitely be a little bit more unstructured, an opportunity for us to have some fun and vent a little bit, I think, or me at least.
Well, yeah, we have a lot of
experiences.
experiences.
To do this because he wants to vent and talk shit about people and opinions and.
No, yeah. Not at all. I want to do this to educate people in the realest way possible.
Yeah, air quotes around that.
Anytime someone starts using the word "real," that means they're just going to start going off on something.
Well, let's get it. So obviously we've had the MEC format. That the true MEC is our live weekly sessions, right? So we started off having these live sessions where anybody can sign up and join, and they're guest speaker based. And we've created this community where people can come and get real information, because Payne, like you said, there's so much bad information. So we've been having these sessions, and the community's been growing. But I think it's always beneficial for us to keep coming up with ways to add value. And a lot of people are listening to podcasts in their cars while they're working out. So this will just be another form of value that I think we can give back to the creative community.
I love how Dame is telling people who are listening to our podcast how people are listening to our podcast. Anyway, Dame, what's going on, man? It's been a crazy year so far for music news. It seems like people now care. I don't know if people care or the consumers care, but the media are responding to that level of interest in the music business suddenly. And so therefore in 2019, there's been no shortage of asinine, insane music business stories. What's going on now that you really want to talk about? I know you got something on the tip of your tongue.
Sure. So there's an article that I read recently in Rolling Stone, actually. And and I made a post about this the other day, but they were talking about the number of artists being signed, because they were saying that there are 2 artists being signed every single day to major record labels. And I think last year the total was 658 artists. And of course, that's across genres, that's across major labels. But if you think about it, that's a shitload of artists, right? So if over 600 artists are being signed every single year, can we really think that each of these artists is going to receive the attention, the time necessary to develop into the artist that they dream of being? So what is the reality? What is the reality going to be for most of those artists? And I liken it to, if you know anything about baseball and the baseball draft, once you get drafted in baseball, you go into the minor leagues. And that's really where the work starts, right? Because most of those guys never get out of the minors. They stay in the minors for years and years and years. It's a tough road. And then a lot of them just end up retiring. So that's what I think that's what I think is going to happen to a lot of these artists, is because when they sign, that's where the work starts. And if they don't show promise right away, I don't think these labels are going to have patience, because essentially they're just placing as many bets as possible, because they know a few people are going to be winners. Most of them are going to be losers. So what happens to those people, and how can you take advantage of that situation if your label ends up losing interest in you? So I definitely see in a year from now, a lot of artists going to Twitter talking about how their label did them wrong. It was a shady situation. They didn't get what they expected. So I think it's just setting up a lot of artists to fail in that system.
You know, I'll say this because I'm the positive guy now. I think that's a good indication of the power of being an unsigned artist. If that many labels can just go online and see all of these viable artists and to the point where they actually sign them and invest in them to some degree, that goes to show you that the power of the do-it-yourself unsigned artist to build up their own fan base is really strong right now. Because otherwise, the labels wouldn't even know who these artists are to sign them. But you know, I'm skeptical about the article just because it's Rolling Stone, and I don't. After that Young Keo article, I'm giving Rolling Stone the side eye.
So you're skeptical of the concept, or skeptical of like just the numbers? Like
because the numbers break down.
Because it is a fact that labels are signing a lot of artists, even giving them like label deal, because they're trying to place as many bets as possible, and they're competing against each other. So I just think that, you know, they're not even going after just the artists that have created a fan base already. You know, I think they're diving deeper. They're trying to get people sooner because they might blow. Like some of these artists might do something. So I think that they're just trying to, you know, gather up as much talent as possible. So which piece of the article do you think is being fabricated?
I'm not saying it's being fabricated. I just want to know what kinds of deals there are. Are they licensing deals? Are they the traditional recording deal? Are they publishing deals? Because some of these labels have publishing wings. So are we lumping everything together? I guess I don't know, because I didn't see it broken down. They're just saying 2 a day on average. So I'm kind of.
So I think even if the number is not exactly right, even from the conversations that I've had with people at labels, like there's a lot of artists being signed, and there's not much time for these artists to prove something before they're not given any attention, right? So if they're signing, and then if they don't show promise right away, and that promise is usually manifested in some type of number, then that's kind of like move on to the next one. So you have to really show them something right away. So I think for artists that are going to sign, like make sure that you have the attention of the key decision makers in the building, and make sure that you can hit the ground running right away.
I'd like to know who all these 600 artists are that are getting signed. I know a couple of them. You know, you hear about them in blogs or on academics page, or, you know, whatever. But like, are these artists that already have momentum independently? Are these artists that don't have shit going on but are talented and, you know, somehow get a deal? Like,
I think it's a mix, man, because I was like doing my research for our 1 week notice project, because I was trying to figure out like, okay, who can we have on this project? And for the listeners, 1 week notice project is a project where we fly artists to a city to have them record a project in 1 week. And as I was coming across artists and doing my research, I was noticing that a lot of these guys were already signed, and they didn't have the biggest fan base. I mean, some of these guys had like 10,000 followers on Instagram, 20,000, 30,000. It wasn't people that were like really, really moving. So I think that labels are diving deeper and you know, going past people that have huge followings to try to, again, place bets even on people that have shown a little bit of promise with a little bit of momentum. I think you'd be surprised, because like I said, I saw it in a few of the cats that I didn't think were moving at all, but they were signed to a deal.
But that's
I love to see one of these agreements, though.
Yeah,
I just want to know what they're offering, what the terms are. You know what I mean? Because
I think it's gonna be all types of deals. You know, but I know that, you know, just in speaking with artists are always looking for help, right? Even if it's not the right situation, they just want things to be a little bit easier. They want some help. And there's still some type of, you know, it still looks cool to sign in a lot of situations. So I think a lot of this stuff is being done prematurely. They should build up, and they should, you know, be able to command a better deal. But I think cats are still signing deals early, and they shouldn't.
I think artists, man, are letting are letting these labels just sell them dreams and not capitalizing on their own talent, you know, because I feel like if you believe in yourself, then you're going to put in that work and you're going to, you know, it's going to pay dividends for you much more than anyone else. Like, why would you sign to anyone when you're not in a position in your career to like have any sort of leverage?
That's exactly why, though. I mean, I have these conversations on Twitter all the time, which I shouldn't do, where recording artists are saying, well, that's what a label. But you know what? People will say that the burden of growing a fan base and branding and marketing and basically, as they say, blowing an artist up falls entirely on the backs of a manager or an agent or an assistant or a label or an A&R or a team. So often that's what you'll hear. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, of course it's crazy because you have that. Some of these old idioms work. Like, no one's going to work for you like you work for you. We say that all the time. Scared money don't make no money. You know, stuff like that we say, but we don't actually believe. But some of these are actually accurate. And if you're looking for a manager to blow you up or a label to blow you up, that's really not what it is. And maybe the labels aren't going to tell you that. I mean, I feel like this has happened to me, and I'm sure it's happened to you, Kato. And I'm not going to say names of artists or names of labels, but I think we've been in situations like that where the labels are hedging their bets, you know, dropping a little money on such and such an artist. Fortunately for me, it was actually a pretty favorable deal and not something restrictive, but I don't know how it's been in your experience with all the artists that you worked with.
I mean, what I would like to see Rolling Stone cover is how many of those 600 whatever artists actually end up doing something with their careers the following year. I think those are the articles that we actually need to see and pay attention to, because who gives a fuck who's getting signed? Like, that doesn't mean shit. Just because you're signed doesn't mean anything.
No, from an artist perspective, I mean, it is interesting though, because it's showing how much money is being gone into what they're calling A&R. I guess it's, right, some of it's A&R, but you know, and I think it's also just highlighting that there's money back in music. Like the overall pie is growing again because it hadn't for so many years. So it's definitely still an interesting figure to me. But it should give artists, it should make them aware that they should be a little bit cautious before jumping into these deals. If so many people are doing it, you know, how realistic is it that I'm going to receive the time and attention I need to really grow? It's still going to be on my back once I jump into a label deal, and you have to understand that it's going to be on you essentially to make it happen.
Well, the narrative is that the label will enhance or blow up an artist that it gets behind. And clearly, if they're signing 2 artists a day on average, you know, if we're going with that number, then the ratio is way off, because 600 artists don't break every year, or right, 700, whatever the math amounts to, maybe 10. You know what I mean? It's not a crazy number. There's only one Drake. There's only one Taylor Swift. So that, combined with the narrative that the music business is broke and you can't make any money doing it, just really paints a pretty confusing picture to people.
Yeah. Well, it's basically going back to how the music industry operated before I got into it, right? You would hear all the time that, you know, the few winners covered the losses of the losers at the label, right? So the label would still sign a bunch of people, and then, you know, you hear of all these stories of artists getting shelved, you know, but then you have the Rihannas and the Drakes, and that basically keeps the lights on at the labels. And I think that's essentially what's happening again all over in this digital era with streaming, you know, revenue starting to rise.
It's just crazy how we know that the ratio's off, but from an artist perspective, we still want that deal. And I mean, we've seen amazing, talented artists who have been super successful on their own, signed to a label, and have a miserable time. I mean, I'm sure we can name it. It happened to Snow with her deal. I'm sure you saw that play out, right?
I've never. I was just talking to my engineer yesterday about this. I don't think I've ever met an artist that was like, "Yeah, I love my label. Like everything's going great." I can't recollect any time that has ever happened, and maybe it's just because the ones, where it is working for them just don't speak up about it, or I don't know. But every time, I've heard an artist talk about their label or their situation, it's never been in a positive light.
Well, I mean, I definitely know artists that are happy with their label situations, but people don't go to Twitter and share that news, right? Like you're only going to go to Twitter when stuff is fucked up. Like if things are going bad, if things are going good, I mean, I think we see the results of what a label can do, like for certain artists. So you need to be a certain artist that makes a certain type of music, and expectations need to be aligned before you get into these label situations. Like for an artist like French Montana, do we really think French Montana would be as successful as he is without the support of a label? I mean, he is a grinder, and I know part of his history, and he's a hustler. But there's no way that he would have achieved the type of success that I've seen, at least from the outside looking in. A lot of these cats, all the successful cats, I think, I'm sure they've had issues with their labels here and there, maybe some creative choices here and there. But overall, I think we know of them because they've had label support, and a lot of them we wouldn't have known about because if they didn't sign.
But I don't know if is that label support though? Like, I don't know that we can even say that, because how much of that do we know for a fact was because of the label? I mean, French Montana to me just seems like he has a lot of really good relationships in the music industry, and that's really been the strength of his career. Is just
no one can say anything bad about French. I've never even heard whispers about French Montana.
Yeah, like he seems like a super cool person, like that has just a lot of good relationships in the music industry.
Yeah,
but that's contributed more to success than anything.
No, but a lot of his success is radio driven with big hits, and you don't get global radio on that level without the support of a major label. I know he's a hustler. I know some of his background, but there's no way that his music gets to the audiences that it's gotten to without the support of a label. I'm not anti-label. I think labels work for a lot of artists. I've seen it work for a lot of artists. You just got to be the right artist, and you have to know what you're getting into. And again, know that the work starts when you get signed. That's not when the work stops. People don't just, hold your hand and take you through this process. You have to grind and work, and you have to make everybody in the building a believer of what you got going on.
Well, you think that's going to change the dynamic of the signed artist label relationship? Because a lot of times, to a degree, the label deal can be restrictive. Based on releases and that kind of thing. Sometimes the labels will take over your social media or your YouTube channel, this and that. And now that it's like they're sending a mixed message. We want to sign you. You're under our wing now, but you still have to keep proving yourself with your own resources, on your own time, with your own energy. That's kind of a conflict, right? Because they have a release schedule, and labels aren't going to put something out just because you tell them to. But if you don't keep releasing content, your fans aren't going to be galvanized enough for the label to say, we should start paying attention to this artist and actually put some resources into their movement.
Well, look, I don't think, and again, it could be different from situation to situation, but I don't think the label is just like super hands off, like do your own thing. Like we're not giving you money. We're not giving you PR support. We're not giving you any marketing support. You're just doing your own thing. You're signed to us, but you're doing your own thing until you prove to us that you're worthy of being helped, even though we've signed you already. From what I've seen, there's definitely support, even if they're still releasing, projects until like the actual album. Like even we
experienced that.
What'd you say?
I need to experience. I've never experienced that. It's always just been real hands off, or I'm working with some, massive superstar that doesn't
even when we signed a label services deal with Warner, with Funk Volume, and it was just a label services deal where they were receiving a percentage of sales. So they didn't well, they gave us an advance, but we got immediate support. We got to meet with their PR people. We got to meet with their marketing people. We were, they were helping us put together pitch decks and things like that to meet with brands. So if we're receiving that kind of support and we're just on a label services deal, if we actually signed to them, I would have to think that if not the same level of service, it's more.
You were kind of at the top of the independent hip hop world, though, at the time. I mean, there weren't many labels bigger than Funk Volume in that space.
But what I'm saying, if a label gives you money like that, if they're gonna want their money back, right? So they're not just gonna let you do your thing. They gotta feel like they've recouped in some way. This whole write-off thing is weird. Like when people say people do things just for the write-off, you still spending the money. That would be stupid. I've never seen an artist not get any support once they've signed. Any of the artists that I've known that signed, I
think the moral of the story is that artists, if you do not know how to move on your own and support your own career first, then nobody else is going to invest in you. Because that was true for Funk Volume, because we were already moving on our own. We had a lot of momentum on our own. We built a fan base on our own. Like, of course they're going to help us because they know that we can, we're walking into the situation already with leverage, So I think that's the key, is if an artist or a label doesn't know how to be self-sufficient, then nobody's going to give a fuck.
Well, let's switch gears then, because that's a good segue into this next conversation, which is, and it's a story everybody knows about. They might not know his name. His name is Chad Focus. He's the rapper who's now infamous for, I guess, embezzling, stealing $4 million plus from his corporate job to invest into his rap career, and is now facing charges, or has been indicted. I'm not sure what the status is of his case. I wish him the best, absolutely. But what I hear all the time too, and I even want to pull up some comments from our Instagram, is that the quality of music doesn't matter. Music is trash nowadays. The only thing that matters is money. The only thing that matters is an investment. And so I want to submit Chad Focus as a counter to that, because I'm of the belief that music absolutely matters. And I think now more than ever, you might not like Old Town Road, but a billion kids love it and won't stop singing it. So, some grizzled 36-year-old dude that only wants to listen to the grimiest horrorcore hip hop from the 90s might say, yeah, music's really gone downhill and all this stuff is trash, and the only reason Old Town Road is big because of money. Well, of course they're not on TikTok because they don't even know what the hell that is. And their opinion is their opinion. It's not reality. So they haven't actually seen the grind. So I submit to you, Chad Focus, right? $4 million invested in his career. Millions of YouTube views, verified on Instagram, almost 200,000 followers, Times Square billboards, merchandise, a Billboard charting record, and it's a good song. I'm not going to say that the song is trash. I think the song is good. I checked out his This Is 50 interview recently, and he's an SEO specialist. So I don't know how he invested his money, but you know what I mean? But he didn't come off as an idiot. He knows at least the lay of the land to an extent. I don't know him personally, but you hear all these rappers say, if I only had a verification badge, if I only had all these followers, if I only had $1 million, if I only had, a Billboard hit, if I only had, a Billboard ad, I'd blow up. What are the implications of this case on independent musicians?
I think with this situation, from what I know, again, and I don't know that much about it, but it seemed like he was just in it for the clout. Like he was buying fake streams, fake followers, things like that. He didn't really have a plan. Because to me, if you spend $4.1 $1 million on your career and you don't have a sustainable career after that, you should probably get out of music. You know, there's no way. He should have had a plan. It seemed like he was just throwing money at different ideas, hoping they would stick, right? Like I think he did a billboard in Times Square. Like why are you doing a billboard? That has to just be for an ego stroke, for clout. Like he should have known he's not ready to have a billboard in Times Square. He should have had a longer term plan and executed it and fine-tuned it, you know, according to what was working, what was not working. To me, that's what he lacked was vision and a plan to execute. He was just throwing money at stuff, doing random things. So help me if I'm wrong, but that's what it seemed like he was doing.
Well, I'll submit to you that I think what he didn't do was the groundwork and telling his story, interacting with his fans, painting that human picture for people. I think that's what was missing. And I don't think that $4 million is ever going to turn you into a star if your story isn't established. I mean, maybe in the pop world, I don't know, but here, let me read this comment and you can tell me, because like I said, I turned over a new leaf. I'm not responding to this stuff.
I don't believe it, Payne.
I'm trying really hard, man.
Any more comments anymore in the tone in which you respond to people? That would
you can't actually hear tone. You just read it and okay. So there are a lot of this is probably your friend Dame. He said, "Stop all the bullshit. The major labels own the playlists that matter. No difference than the payola and buybacks they did on CDs. If you're not in the circle, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. You're just not in. Talent has nothing to do with it. I'll point out a dozen sloppy ass artists that you know damn well should break."
Why is that my friend?
I don't know, because he's on the MEC.
I don't know these internet weirdos, man. I mean, I think talent. Well, I don't know if talent matters, consistency matters, branding matters. You know, because there's some people that, you know, I guess talent is subjective too, right? So, you know, I think people that, for me, I think that the people that are going to have longevity are people that actually do have talent, because it requires an artist to evolve over time. And if you don't have talent, it's going to be very difficult for your sound to evolve. Like if you don't really understand how to make music, how to construct songs, when trends change, it's going to be very difficult for you to evolve or stay ahead of the curve. So that's why I think talent matters. But we have seen artists who aren't the best rappers have long, sustainable careers. So, you know, talent does matter, but you know, you can't get around it if you have, you know, smart branding and consistency and a compelling story.
Well, one could argue that having a compelling story and conveying that to the people is a talent. But this is the comment I really wanted to read to you. This is a beautiful one. This is actually, I want to ask both of you this, but I want Kato to respond, because Kato, you just dropped a record with the new artist here, where you can tell us about that, but it's doing well. And you can tell us about how you did this all organically without $4 million in a billboard ad in Times Square. But here's the comment. So this was left on the MEC page, and I posted something there talking about how fake views and numbers and all that don't matter, because what matters is your connection to your fans. Euphoria X God says, "I disagree with you." This is directed to me, and I'm not responding because I'm a new man. "I disagree with you on so many levels, bro. You should encourage people to spend money if they have the talent and not wait for some lottery chance on making a hit. That's facts. Hashtag facts. I do agree you don't need radio or blogs to make you great, but damn, if you got money to attract a bigger audience, go for it. If you don't believe in yourself, who else will?"
I mean, yeah. So I think there are a couple different things that he said. Some of it is true. You know, if you have the money, most definitely you should invest back into your career and do what you can, spend on some Facebook ads or invest that into some visuals or something. I think it's great to have that resource, but do you need that to become successful? I don't think so. I think it just requires work ethic and great music, and that goes back to just me and 30. What I saw in him was talent, and not only talent, but the reason why I decided to invest my time and energy into him in particular. I get hundreds of DMs a day from kids asking me to listen to their music. The reason why I invested my time and energy into 30 is because he didn't just send me one song. Like, he sent me 5 or 6 songs, and every single one was fucking crazy. That's what I saw in him. I saw the work ethic, and he's still doing that, Like, I met him back in December, he's still sending me music. And so it's the talent, it's the work ethic. When we released our first single, like, my whole strategy going into it was we have a cool story. Like, I discovered this kid randomly on Instagram. I'm going to figure out how to tell that story in a narrative where people relate. Because I know my audience is like mostly up and coming artists and producers. So I know if I can tell that story, they're going to relate to it. And they're almost going to feel like they see themselves in 30. So, we did that. We pushed, Spotify pre-saves. We did the DIY distribution through DistroKid, and we used all the free tools that we have on social media. We submitted the song to the playlist editorials on Spotify just through the Artists for Spotify account. And it got picked up by like 3 major Spotify playlists. And we're at like 40,000 streams in a week or so. So, yeah, and that's with no budget, like nothing.
And none of that was, you know what I'm saying?
What is this?
And you gotta say what gestures you're doing. None of that was what.
What are all those the Illuminati hand symbols that everybody?
I don't know, but I think you just did a white power symbol. That was out of pocket.
Yeah.
No, I definitely didn't do a white power symbol.
That was out of pocket.
I was like, what is this?
Say that quote again, because I don't necessarily disagree with what he said. I think he just took, like, because sometimes people respond to parts of things, and how they respond is factual, but they only responded to part of the original post, right?
So yeah, for the record, the original post didn't say don't spend money on your career. That would be absolutely
right. He took it and kind of made his own thing, but because I don't necessarily think you have to have money, but at some point you're gonna want to invest in your career. So I've seen a lot of people just turn their phone on themselves and be able to build up an audience, be able to build up a YouTube audience, and then that YouTube audience, eventually turns into money because you get paid for your views. So I don't think not having money is an excuse, but I think at some point you're going to want to invest in your career to make everything better quality over time. So I didn't necessarily hear anything wrong in what he said. You just shouldn't use it as an excuse, because we all have, most of us have phones, and you can create an audience, whether you're just freestyling or talking shit or whatever. If you have talent, you can create an audience and monetize it from nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, someone sent me a video montage of Lady Gaga and various other celebrities doing this, that symbol over their eye, and that was proof that I was working within a corrupt industry. I've been brainwashed, and everything I've been living for the last 15 years has been a lie. So on that note, we have a lot of stuff coming up at Music Entrepreneur Club. The whole point of Music Entrepreneur Club is not to come up here and shoot down Illuminati theories. It is to empower artists who are working, aspiring musicians, aspiring music professionals of all kinds, including managers, producers, and songwriters, so forth, and to do so in a way that's sustainable and smart, and regardless of whether or not you have a budget, like Chad Focus, whether you don't have a budget, whether you've done one of those satanic rituals with Quincy Jones like Kato and 30, no matter what it is, we have some experience and some information for you. So Dame, what's coming up? I know we got the tour. That's a big thing. But
so we started this year kind of creating a live experience as opposed to just our online session. So in the first tour, we did Phoenix, Vegas, Denver, the Bay, and LA. And what these were pop-up conferences where we came to these cities and had about a 4 to 6 hour event of sessions, networking opportunities. Just gave people a chance in those cities to hear from established professionals. So we're continuing that. There'll be the second leg of the tour. We'll be on the East Coast. We'll be hitting Atlanta, DC, Philly, Boston, and New York from August 4th to August 11th. If you're in any of those cities, or I would say within 2 to 3 hour driving radius from those cities, come out, please. It's MECtour.com. Tickets are available right now. It's a dope event. We did this because not that many cities have an opportunity to get to dope conferences like A3C or South by Southwest. So this is us coming to you, or hopefully somewhere near you. So please come out and rock with us if we're coming near your city.
Yeah, I will say this. Let me just end on this note. But I think one of the biggest things that I see in upcoming artists and producers where they kind of plateau and don't know where to go in their career is the lack of information. Like they're not surrounding themselves with people that understand the music business. They just kind of live in their own world and think that if they make good music, then everything else will fall into place. And I know from experience that that's not true. Like you have to actively go out and seek the information and seek like different resources and networking. Like you have to go out there and do other things outside of the music. So I think that's what the Music Entrepreneur Club tour is about. Like we want to help you connect the dots with the things that are missing in your career to help you get to the next level,
I think ultimately, a lot of people just don't have the patience to learn. They want all of their information to be bite-sized. They want it to be delivered in a meme or a tweet and think that that's actually learning the business when that's, really not the case. They really have to invest the time and energy to create real relationships. And, you're not going to learn publishing in 144 characters. So if you care about collecting your royalties, care about understanding how to monetize your career, you have to invest the time and energy.
All right. On that note, we'll catch you next time on the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. Trust me, we'll be back. We're in too deep. The blood ritual has been done and it's completed. Quincy Jones has been appeased. And MECtour.com is where to learn about the tour, all the dates, all the speakers, all the topics, and so forth. Shout out to Song Trust and LA Vocal Boost for helping make that happen. Once again, I'm DJ Payne 1, joined with Kato on the track and Dame Ritter from MusicEntrepreneurClub.com. I'm out.
Illuminati.